Welcome to the Lutetia Lounge. Produced by Studio Whacked.
And Kiev too, but Kiev, it was not easy to cover because the gun battles, Kiev is 8 times the size of Paris.
Kiev, 8 times bigger?
Yeah,
okay.
It's huge. And so you could have a fight on the other side of Kiev and not know about it. Sometimes I would have Paris tell me that the city I was in was being bombed. I didn't know. Because it's like kilometers away.
It'd be like something going off in the 77th or something from here.
Yeah, but not even going off in the 16e. You wouldn't hear the bombs. In the 16e arrondissement, in Trocadero, you wouldn't hear.
Wow, I don't realize.
Yeah, you'd probably hear them a little bit further.
Yeah.
Like Boulogne or Saint-Cloud. You hear the sirens. That you have at least 10 alerts every night and a few in the daylight. But it doesn't mean you're the target, because when they fire those rockets or the bombers come, they draw a line across the whole country in the direction. So they'll have sirens all along the line. They don't know where they're going to drop, though. But if like 5 cities are in the same line as the bomber's going, they'll alert all the cities. But the bombing can be in any city, not all of them. So
along a linear.
Yeah, when a rocket's fired, a missile, they know in which direction it's going. They don't know where it's going to drop.
Where it's going to land.
So they make an alert on all the line. Like for 400 kilometers, it could be any city was hit. So you have more alerts than bombing, except when you're on the front line. Then every bombing is for you.
Yeah. You're the target.
So it's pretty challenging. The Russians are firing about 25,000 shells a day on the front line. That's not counting the drones, the mines, the snipers. So it's pretty heavy.
And that's been the same statistics for
a while, yeah. And they're losing a lot of people. For the last battle at Vika, they were losing 700 men a day killed.
Jesus Christ.
It's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of casualties.
Yeah. And they're not that many, the Russians. They're 140 million people for a huge country. And the Americans have 250 million people.
Oh, I think America had 350, 400 million, like 5-6 years ago.
Okay, so it's double of the Russians.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And Europe is probably the double of the Russians, too, even more. I think we're around 400 million.
Well, between, I think, Germany and France alone, there's at least 150 million, no? At least the Germanic, the Teutonic-speaking countries with Austria, Switzerland, and Germany would be 80, and then France would be 70, so that's 150 alone, just between those countries.
That's that's the Russians.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like very many.
No, they're not. And plus that Russia is a lot of old people in Russia.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of old people and a lot of drunk. They have a drinking problem. Many people die at 40, 50,
Cirrhosis.
Yeah.
Yeah, the liver.
In the countryside. Their soldiers are pretty young, but ill-trained, ill-equipped. And like the Ukrainians and me too, we have anti-clogging dressing in case you get a hemorrhage. The Russian soldiers, they have Tampax to stop the bleeding.
They just have feminine hygiene to sort out their
wounds. Their
wounds.
mothers and their sisters and their wives that gave it to them. They don't.
Jesus Christ, that's insane.
Yeah, it is. It's a big joke amongst the Ukrainian soldiers when they find out. They say, "You sissy, you're using Tampax to come and fight us."
I guess you had to see the humor in that situation, but.
But actually, when you think of it, it's pretty sad for those poor Russian soldiers. I feel sorry for these poor guys because most of them are not motivated. They've been drawn in the army. They didn't have a choice. I won't feel sorry for Wagner or for the elite troops, and for the prisoners who, made a deal. You do 6 months in Ukraine, and you can kill another child when you're out and rape a woman if you want. You'll be a free man. So these guys are assholes. But out of 20,000 for the Battle of Bakhmut, they lost 18,000 of the prisoners. So there are less volunteers to go now. They were nearly all killed. All the guys who were taken out of prison.
It was just like a slaughterhouse.
Yeah, because that's how they use them. They want to tire the Ukrainians, so they keep attacking. Waves of men that get cut in two, but it gets on the nerves. It uses your ammunition. You can't sleep. And it's like 5 days attack, waves of waves. Every half hour, you have another 500 men attack in the same open field. They get cut in pieces because you have machine guns, cannons, artillery, everything, who know exactly where the field is. So they just wait until they're in the middle of the open and boom.
I didn't know that the war was sort of unrolling in that fashion. That seems very archaic to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's like the First World War.
Yeah.
Well, they don't even think, now the commander I spoke recently said, I said, how many kilometers, did you lose or did you gain on a 1,000 kilometers front line? He said, we don't count in kilometers anymore. I said, okay, how many meters? He said, we don't count in meters anymore. We count in centimeters. Today, we gained 100 centimeters. Last night, we lost 3,000 centimeters. And it's like that on all the line. It's just... So recently, they moved out of a city because they were losing too many men. And they decided to leave the Russians take that city. And now they're just bombing the city with the Russians inside.
To maybe gain 3 meters or 3,000 centimeters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now the strategy of the Ukrainians is to kill the more Russians possible, destroy the more equipment. And they're firing at the lines behind. The ammunition's coming in, the petrol coming in, the soldiers coming in, they bomb that. They bomb more behind than in front because they don't have enough shells. Americans stop helping. France doesn't have enough shells. France would have lost it 2 weeks with the ammunition we have at the rhythm of their firing. 2 weeks. And then we would fight with our dick,
You said you should have to give in at that point. Oh my God! Really?
Attention, je vais me fâcher. It's like the Americans 2 months of ammunition, not more. We're not ready for that kind of war. We were capitalizing on peace and capitalizing on high technology. Airplanes, submarines, not waves of Russians attacking on the fields, fighting close combat like this distance. I can show you some videos. They're killing each other 1 meter.
Wow.
Fighting in the trenches like in First World War. Yelling at each other, in the mud and the snow.
And how much munitions do they have that they could keep carrying on this way?
The Ukrainians, they're nearly out. France and Germany are trying to send them some. We promised 3 million shells. We gave them about 500,000 shells, but that's gone. I was with the artillery group. They would fire 10 shells in response of 300 shells fired at them. So, and they're outnumbered, outgunned, out-ammunitioned.
And so the Russians just have an endless supply.
Well,
it seems that way.
Yeah, because first of all, they were preparing for this years before. We were not ready. Second, they are in war economy, which all the factories now are making munitions and tanks. They are coming out of their factories 100 tanks a month, 100 new tanks a month. You can't do that in France or Germany. I mean, I don't see Macron ask to Renault to make tanks every month instead of cars. You'd have a strike. And where
You'll have a strike anyways. But
Yeah, and work 24 hour on 24 hour.
Yeah.
They're working 8 hours, 3 shifts of 8 hours.
They
The Russians
every day.
every day and night making tanks, ammunition. This is their strength, and they can mobilize if they do a general mobilization. 8 million men, 9 million. The Ukrainians maybe 2 million max.
Wow.
So it's hard.
Well, Patrick, I want to thank you for being here today.
Yeah.
This is amazing. I finally came around to making this happen. For all the Anglophone and international people that are listening in English, I just like to go back and maybe touch on some earlier things that you've done and talk about how you got into photojournalism and I guess a reporter of war.
Yeah, well, it just happened. I mean, my father was a soldier during the Second World War. He was 16 when he joined. He lied on his age because you had to be 18, but they needed men.
Mm-hmm.
So he was in the Deuxième DB, which is second cavalry unit, tanks, and so he had been wounded in France as a résistance, I don't know how you say in English.
The resistance.
Yeah, the resistance. And he was wounded. He was sent to Spain. Then he was put in prison by the Spanish because it was Franco,
They're fascists, yeah.
And then he got out. He was sent to England. Then he lied on his age, joined the army. And the Americans at one moment, as he's from Brittany, said, okay, he knows Normandy. It's the same area for them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Which is not true. He doesn't know Normandy, but
It doesn't matter.
and he spoke English, so he was a scout.
Your father spoke English as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he spoke English very well.
Okay.
And I am very happy to meet you. It was like he spoke English like Pepe Le Pew. Okay. I love you very much. You are beautiful. But they said, okay, he speaks English, so he's going to be a scout for the big red one.
Mm.
And so he landed in Omaha Beach, first wave, in Normandy.
Whoa.
So I said, oh, you're a hero. He said, well, I couldn't understand a word of what the Americans were talking about on the boat. So as a translator, it was going to be a catastrophe. There were guys from Ohio, from Texas. He couldn't understand a word. And he, on the beach, he didn't know where the fuck he was. He lost his gun. He crawled on 4 paws amongst dead guys, finally found a gun, reached the back of the dunes, started firing, and then he woke up in London. He got a bullet, went in and out the ear. I just knocked him out. So I said, that's your hero. I fire up maybe 50 bullets and I wake up in London.
He actually had it pierced through his lower...
Yeah, it went
like
through
his
here
cheekbone?
and it went through the ear on the way out. All his life he would put his cigarette in the hole. The hole was there all his life. Just put the cigarette. And then a few months later, he was next to the German border, still with the American army, and they said, hey, the Frog, get in the Jeep and go and see if there's Germans in the village 10 kilometers away. And he told me he should have been careful because the driver of the Jeep and the gunner were black. Didn't sound like a good mission. The Frog and 2 blacks, it's not a good, karma in those days.
You see him coming from a mile away, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, today it would be le quota, as is, you have to have a black.
Yeah. Or it'd be a Benetton ad.
Yeah, voilà. But there it was not a good, if you think, he should have said no. So he went to the village. They stopped just before the village in a curve. He said to the guys in the Jeep, wait here. He got on a small hill and started looking the houses with the goggles.
Binoculars, yeah.
Yeah, binoculars. Woke up in London. There was a German tank that fired at the Jeep, and he got like 100 shrapnels in the back and the legs because he was far away, pieces of the Jeep and pieces of the black soldiers.
Jesus.
So that's my hero. And so then he went to Indochina, got shot at the French military, and then he became a reporter. Got fed up of getting shot.
Well, 3 times the charm, right?
Yeah,
I mean, gee.
but you still get shot when you're a reporter.
Yes.
You just don't get the medals.
But he ended up filming there, didn't he?
No, he never filmed. That was my uncle, Pierre
Okay.
Chendorfer.
Okay.
So my father his name was Jean-François Chauvel, so he was a writer for AFP, and then he was a writer for a grand reporter for the Figaro, and then he had 3 TV shows, like 60 Minutes.
Okay.
He was heading 3 TV shows. And then when Mitterrand was elected, he was fired
Okay.
because he was a right wing. So as France is a democracy, he was fired from the TV.
Yes.
And my uncle was a cameraman for the army in Indochina. And he jumped on Dien Bien Phu, which was a French camp next to Laos, North Vietnam, that was encircled by thousands of Vietnamese. And the battle lasted more than a month, and we had to give up. So he was taken prisoner. And then he came back as a war prisoner. He came back in France, and he met my father in a brothel in Morocco on a story where there was a revolt of the Mountainers, with the French Foreign Legion helping and all that. They became friends. My father presented his sister to Pierre, and he became my uncle. And these 2 guys with their war stories, one was not a fighter, he was a reporter, Chendorfer, working for the French army as a cameraman. Plus, their friends were writers like Joseph Kessel, Lartegui, which is a French writer too, a few mercenaries, Bob Denard. So these guys were telling war stories. Kessel was a fighter pilot during the First World War.
Wow, when they were like dogfights.
Yeah, and he wrote Le Chant des Partisans, the famous song of the partisans. And he was at the French Academy as a writer, l'Académie Française. So they were telling all kinds of stories, and I was a very bad student. So they sent me to a sort of military boarding school, and I didn't really insist on my studies. I would have probably passed my baccalaureate at 40, probably.
At 40, okay. Well,
Or 50, maybe.
maybe, yeah.
I was really, I was not interested at all. I knew how many birds were outside the window in the forest, but I didn't know the face of the teacher. I kept looking out the window.
Daydreamer.
Yeah. I mean, drawing and telling these stupid stories to my friends to make them laugh, and that's it. And and my grandfather, who brought me up the first years until I was 10, he was French ambassador in China, in Washington, in London, and in Geneva.
You were raised by him?
By my grandfather
Okay.
until I was 10.
Okay.
And then I was sent to a boarding school.
And that's why you speak English so well?
Because I stayed 5 years in London.
Okay.
From 5 years old to 10 years old.
Okay.
So I was at the French embassy. We were sent to Buckingham Palace twice a year for parties with all the diplomats. So I would play with Charles. He's
Prince, or who's now king?
And there was an incident between the French and the British. And there was a small caption in the newspapers, diplomatic incident. I got into a fight with Charles. I must have been 6. And I threw my chocolate at him. And they put a little line, like British sense of humor, saying incident diplomatique between England and France, the chocolate bowl,
The chocolate bowl?
Yeah, I just... And years later, when I was coming back from Vietnam, the British ambassador here was marrying his daughter. Mr. Summers was marrying his daughter, who was from the high British society. Invited the residents here, Rue Saint-Honoré, was Charles and his sister Margaret. And I got an invitation, and I couldn't understand why. My grandfather thought I was a hooligan. I had long hair, I had, those pants wide here. With,
Bell bottoms.
yeah, with Indian drawings on them.
Nice. So you were kind of a hippie.
Not really, but... And he said, I don't know where you got this invitation, but you must come and you must put a tuxedo. So I rented a tuxedo, a little bit too big. And we went there. And you have a big, it's beautiful, the British Embassy. You have a huge ballroom.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a guy who announces the people who are coming in. And you have in line the British ambassador, Mrs. Summers, Mr. Summers, the daughter, the guy who's going to get married, the prince and the princess. And they tell you, keep your distance, bow, and go on, you know. And the guy says, okay, Mr. Jean Chauvel, his wife and his grandson. And you have all these women and men in the big ball who are watching, you know, saying, who's that? Who's invited? Who is he? And this. And you have this hooligan with this, I arrive, and when I get to the prince, he grabs my arm. Everybody goes, whoa. He never, you know, you have to keep your this. And he says to my ear, remember the chocolate? and that's why I was invited.
Just so he could sort of get...
It's sort of a joke, but I think it's probably his press service that reminded him, because I didn't remember.
Yeah.
He probably didn't remember either. But it was like a private joke. So after the whole night, everybody was like looking at me, what did the prince say in his ear? Mm. So there was a big mystery. And then this guy, security guy, called me and said, you must follow me. And then we went to the library.
During the gala? During this ball?
And we went to the library. It was another room, huge, beautiful, wooden, you know, with ladders.
Yeah, the old school, like
Yeah, and leather chairs. Mm-hmm. And it was like a James Bond film. Prince was sitting there from back, and you could see smoke coming out, and there was like a cherry, a glass of cherry.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And he said, so I sat in front of him, and he said, why don't we exchange lives? I mean, your life is so exciting. You're a free man, you went to Vietnam, and you're only 19, and you're going back, and you're going to travel, and you don't know what's going to happen to you. I said, no, that's what's cool. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going to go next month. I don't know if I'm going to survive. He said, that's my problem. I know exactly which uniform I must wear in 3 years and 12 minutes, and I know which ribbon I'm going to cut. I know exactly who I'm probably going to have to see and say. I'm in prison.
He's a robot, yeah. It's all...
And we had an interesting conversation. He seemed like a pretty nice guy, actually. Mm. Not as stupid as people say.
And he didn't hold the chocolate against you, the chocolate incident?
No, he probably didn't even remember, you know. And the last time I saw him, I was in Miami covering the civil wars in Nicaragua, Salvador, Guatemala, all that. And
which is in the, mid-70s?
No, that was later. It was
early
like 80s,
82,
yeah.
83.
And Newsweek got fed up with sending me from Paris to Salvador, so they rented a house for me in Miami for 7 years. It was cool.
Well, that's quite nice of them.
3 rooms, a pool. So, I got again an invitation, Palm Beach, Florida, polo match.
Mm.
And I went there, and again, I was probably on the list of their PR, you know, because I saw the prince, I took pictures of him playing polo, but when I crossed his eye in the tent where there was champagne, he didn't recognize me. I mean, he would just walk past. So it's probably more a PR thing, like a private joke or something. And then so one day we were doing a documentary, and my friend said, let's ask Buckingham Palace if we couldn't make an interview of that story. And Buckingham Palace didn't think it was the right moment for that kind of stupidity.
It's kind of shenanigans.
Yeah, no.
Even though they were the ones who were cheeky about it.
Yeah, but that was a long time ago. You know,
yeah.
So
you're
so it was all those stories
from
Pierre, the family, Pierre Schoendorfer.
Schoendorfer.
Yeah.
Schoendorfer.
It's from Alsace.
Yeah, he's Alsatian.
Yes.
And your father? It was Jean-François
Chauvel, yeah.
but they were both writers, and both
Yeah.
scenaristes. They were both screenwriters as well.
No, Pierre was. My father didn't.
No, I thought he helped him.
He helped him on one film.
Okay, yeah.
Which is L'honneur d'un capitaine. But Chien d'Enfer, yeah, he won an Oscar in Hollywood for the documentary following in 1966 an American platoon in Vietnam. Incredible film, and he won an Oscar like foreign documentary. I remember it was Gregory Peck who gave it to him. And
Really?
Yeah. I've got the picture, and Pierre looked like a kid because he was short like me. And Gregory was like nearly 2 meters high.
Yeah, I think Gregory Peck was somewhere
Really
around
tall,
6'3", 6'4", like a meter 90 something.
And he was bending to give him this little golden doll. It was really funny. And I remember Pierre would he put the Oscar in the toilets.
That's a good place for it.
Well, at least you know everybody's going to see it.
That's true, right?
There's always a moment when people go and pee, you know. Except you had a roll of toilet paper on the head. But
Okay. Well,
it's a way of saying I don't care, but I do care. You know.
yeah,
It's a sort of mixed thing.
I like it. I like it.
But so he would write books, he would make films, documentaries. My father was just a writer and then had these TV shows.
But it seems like you come from a pedigree, like a lineage of writers and photographers. And didn't your grandfather as well? Wasn't he a poet?
Well, he was president of the French Poets, and he wrote poem books, 5 or 6.
So everybody seems, and you've written
Not
two
poems.
No, you've written 2 books though.
3.
3, excuse me.
And I have 4 and 5 on the way. But the poetry of my grandfather, I couldn't understand. I mean, it's like reading
Greek,
yeah,
but it was French.
upside down. Yeah, it's like. But he was the Président des Poètes de France,
Okay, so he pretty much knew what he was doing.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a whole group of guys who would, in the apartment in Paris, would like be around him and like with big eyes, like, you know, they look like, you know, when the dog looks at you, wanting for food.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and my grandfather was a diplomat, you know. He had the title of Ambassadeur de France, which is pretty high, and he would always talk a way you couldn't understand a word. And very slow. So it was like, what are you saying? I can't understand. I have to lean forward, and plus that you're eating your words. I said, yeah, that's why I'm a good diplomat. I just say anything.
And everybody nods like, oh,
they
of
nod
course.
and they sign. And then there's a war.
And you get to go take pictures.
Yeah, voilà. So my grandfather, when he was pretty old, he would go to church every Sunday and come back with sweets with cream, and he would eat them with joy every Sunday, saying, I'm committing suicide, because it was forbidden for him. And one day he said, Patrick, I'm a photographer too. I said, Jean, what do you mean? And he said, I'll show you. And he went to Photomaton, you know,
the boxes.
and he made faces. I mean, this guy, so serious, who signed the Geneva Accords, who stopped the Indochina War with the Mendes France, has maybe 50 pictures of him, you know, putting his tongue out, going like this with the eyes. This ambassador, like 80 years old. Every Sunday after church, he would get really close to the objectif, so it would make him a huge nose. And he was happy with that, but always with a poker face.
Yeah.
Said, I'm a photographer too, and he would show me them. And one day, I saw him throw away La Légion d'honneur. He had all the grades of the Légion d'honneur. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm not Brigitte Bardot. I said, yeah, that I noticed. Although he did have tits, getting old.
At the end, yeah.
And he said they just gave La Légion d'honneur to Brigitte Bardot. Brigitte Bardot has the Légion
What
d'honneur.
for?
Well, Alain Delon has it too.
Oh, well, I guess they just give it to anybody these days, huh?
Yeah, but that's what made him mad.
Yeah, I bet, yeah,
He
it's
got
just
it for the war, for the resist. He was chief of the resistance group. He was wounded as an artillery guy.
In the First World War.
First World War
Yeah.
and Second World War, he was chief of Réseau de Résistance. So in 2 wars he was involved. And so in the family, yeah, you have the grandfather, the father. And one day there was in Paris les accords of 71 peace accords with Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
And Kissinger came to Paris.
Oh,
It was happening in Paris,
a piece of
in a villa. And they were trying to make peace with North Vietnam. And they were discussing for weeks. And Kissinger, every day at noon, would leave the place and vanish for 3 hours. And then he would start again in the afternoon. And all the press was saying, okay, he's got a mistress, blonde with huge tits. He's a bachelor, he's rich, he's intelligent. He must go and see a girl. So everybody's trying to follow the cars, but you were blocked by the police. And I was in Paris at that moment, and I tried to follow him with my motorcycle, and I lost him at the Trocadero.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to my grandfather's place to have lunch with him. The police stopped me at the entrance. I had to show my ID. Police in the stairs. My grandfather opened the door. I said, why are all these police here? He said, okay, put your photo bag on the ground, shut up and listen. And the blonde with big tits was my grandfather. Kissinger came every day to see my grandfather because my grandfather had signed the same accord, peace talks, in 54, and in 71 it was the same Vietnamese guys.
Okay, wow.
So Kissinger was not stupid. He went to see the guy he had already discussed with them to see if he could get any information that would help in the discussion.
So he had signed him after the Battle of Dien Bien Phu.
No, yeah, that's my uncle actually
Was there. And
was as a prisoner,
Yeah.
and every day the Vietnamese would, you are still prisoners because they can't agree in Geneva. And Pierre didn't know that one day he would be his godfather, the guy negotiating the Accord of Genève.
That's pretty crazy.
And the brother of my mother, who is Corsican, commanded the Foreign Legion in Dien Bien Phu. He was a captain there.
Wow, just a lot of overlap.
Yeah, and so that's again stories of war.
And so that's how you said, listen, these stories are...
Well, I was listening to their stories, and I said one day at the table, I want to go in Vietnam and see what's happening. Everybody was talking about Vietnam in Paris. You had lots of American soldiers who had fled to Paris to avoid to go to Vietnam. And
They're draft dodgers,
yeah,
as my father would call them.
and some of them came from Vietnam through the Jesus Pipeline, they called it.
The Jesus Pipeline.
Yeah, it was a Christian organization in Bangkok that would help the soldiers who were in R&R in Bangkok to exfiltrate them to Amsterdam.
Oh.
Yeah, it was like a sort of peace and love thing. They called the Jesus Pipeline.
Christian hippies.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
And they would end up in Amsterdam and then choose, going to England, Spain, France.
They were deserters.
Yeah, all of them. A lot.
I never heard about that.
Yeah. So I said to my father, I want to go to Vietnam. And he said, why? I said, I want to see war. I want to challenge you. You guys, you've been big heroes. Let's see what I am.
What I'm made of.
And so, at my great surprise, I said, yes, go. And they paid a one-way ticket.
They didn't think you were coming back.
Yeah, that's what my father said.
I was buying a one-way ticket. I don't think he's ever going to make it back.
And I had an invitation to go to their friend, who was a half-breed Vietnamese Corsican, who held the Hôtel Continental in Saigon, which is a famous hotel, where all, let's say, the Latin press was, the French, the Italians. On the other side, you had the Caravel Hotel, that was the British, the Americans, the Australians. And so I came with a letter, and in the letter he said, il est à la recherche du temps perdu. He's looking for lost times. Remember, help him. Signed by Schendorfer, Kessel, Jean-François, all the friends. So I gave them a letter, still with the long hair and the pants.
What year is this? It's like circa 68 or something?
68, yeah.
68.
And he said, shit, this teenager nearly. And so he said, okay, the room's free. You're invited. The room's free. The food is free. The bar and the hookers, you pay. Okay.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And that's it. So I didn't have much money. And I was, of course, not a good photographer at all.
Had you had any prior experience before?
Yeah.
Did you dabbled in it a bit, or was it a hobby of yours or a passion?
No, not. I went to Israel for the 6-Day War as a volunteer in a kibbutz. So the Israelis paid me the trip to a kibbutz in Galilee. It was before the war, but they was on full alert. So they needed young people to help work in the kibbutz because all the young men were
on the front lines,
on alert. And
was that? How did you find out about that?
There was ads in Paris.
Newspapers, or no?
Yeah, that the Israeli needed volunteers. He was on the Jewish area, but my grandfather showed me the thing, and I said, So they paid us a trip by train from Paris to Brindisi, then Brindisi, Haifa on boat. Then we arrived and we'd get flowers. Everybody's singing Hava Nagila and all that. And we would get in military trucks, and some would go to different places. And I went to the kibbutz Yagur in Galilee. And then the war broke out. So I jumped the wall and hitchhiked to the front line. I took about 4 rolls of film. Only 3 pictures came out, because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing.
So you didn't have really any experience with cameras before?
No. A friend photographer lended me a camera. And I had like a piece of paper, clouds, rain, sun, to know what...
For like different f-stops and things like that?
The speed and yes, but I got mixed up.
Okay.
I lost the paper, I don't remember. So there's only 3 pictures that came out. It's when I lended my camera to a soldier who took pictures of me. He knew how to use it. All the rest is completely black or completely white. But at least I have proof I was there, because he took a picture of me. So when I came back, I took a stage?
You did a workshop?
No, I went to Le François newspaper and worked at the lab.
Okay, so
underpaid like a student.
Yeah, what we call, work experience is what we call it in English. Yeah.
And then they made me do a few stories. So I did a story on Polanski.
Okay.
And he had his bodyguards jump on me and break my cameras. So I got pissed.
He had?
Yeah, when he was in the street, I took a picture of him with a girl. And his bodyguards jumped on me, and Polanski took my camera off my neck and broke it on the pavement.
Okay.
He was not happy. So the next day, I hid in a place I knew he would pass. I took pictures of him with a girl. I came in the late afternoon at his hotel. I said to the guy at the front desk, give this to Polanski, he's going to love it. Tell him the photographer is waiting for him in the lobby. So the guy thought he got enraged. I took 2 friends, Yugoslav and tough guys, and said, you're going to take care of the bodyguards, and I'll take care of Polanski. And he ran out of the hotel. I was just in front, and I kicked him in the face with my cowboy boots. So I went back to François the next day, and the director had me come to his office, and he said, Patrick, we asked you to cover the event, not to create the event. And I was fired.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That was it? Oh.
Yeah. You don't kick in the face a star that's supposed to be. But that was my...
So that was before you were in Vietnam. So that's like 67?
It's between 67. I don't really remember the dates because I got back and forth most of the time, I remember that my chief at the photo desk in François. His name was Le Pigeon, pigeon. And he hated me because I had been helped. You know, he had received orders from top, take this young guy, because I had the good connections. But he hated me. He didn't, you know. So each time there was rain, he would say, go on your motorcycle and take pictures of the rain in Paris. I said, well, what about using a car from the newspaper? No, you take a motorcycle. Okay, so each time I would do a small story in Paris, the motorbike guy from François said, the usual? I said, the usual. And we would drive slowly in Paris looking, and then he said, this one's beautiful. I would get off the bike. You know, you've seen sometimes these completely squashed pigeons in the street, flat. And I would start the story with that. And when I would come back, Monsieur Le Pigeon, he would take, you know, the thing to see it, like
a loop or
my
something.
sheet, you know, and he would very funny. You know.
You just always see a dead pigeon
Every time, completely squashed. Every story I did, I started with a pigeon dead, or if I didn't find one, pigeon shit on statues. You know. So my relationship was not good with the chief of the photo. And I tried paparazzi years later. They told me you have, comment il s'appelait, Catherine Deneuve, and he had a kid with her, what's an Italian actor, very famous.
Oh, Maestriani.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They live in the 16e. Take a car and hide, and maybe you can get them together. She's pregnant. I said, no, I don't want to do that. They said Paris Match will pay like 15,000 euros. So it was in francs then.
Yeah.
I said, okay, I'll try.
Yeah.
And they said, if you're lucky, in the same building, you have La Calas, the great singer.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, she was huge, like Pavarotti.
Okay.
Yeah. And Onassis is her lover, and he comes sometimes to pick her up. If you have both of them, then you can buy a house, you know. So Mastroianni came out the balcony, held Catherine Deneuve by the stomach and kissed her in the neck. Got it. Then Onassis comes with his Rolls Royce and waits for La Calas. So I run to a tree, start taking pictures from a tree, and then he sees me. And I go like this, and doesn't react at all, not a muscle. So I get closer, and I take, like, I don't know, 60 pictures of him at the wheel, right in front of him, because he doesn't react. And then this old lady comes out of the building, and he puts his casquette and opens the door for the lady. It's not Onassis, it's a chauffeur. I have 60 pictures of an unknown chauffeur. So at Sigma, they said, okay, just stick to war. You know, first you hit the guy in the face, now you take nearly 100 pictures of a total chauffeur. He must have thought I was crazy. The guy was looking at me and I was like going, yeah.
That's why he wasn't reacting? Or
Yeah, he was just not reacting, just being polite, you know. So war was, Vietnam was easy. The Americans, it was free. You know, the first press conference, they would do it at the airport, international airport, Tan Son Nhut, at 5 o'clock. It was called the 5 o'clock Follies. And all the press was there, and they would show maps and explain what was happening. And then one moment I asked for a question, how can I go to the battle who's happening near Quantry? And the guy said, who are you? Who do you work for? I don't know why I said PIF magazine, which is a communist magazine. PIF. P-I-F. And
this is obviously back in the time when...
Yeah, but nobody even knew what he was. Everybody turned around and said, who's that? They called me Pife because they pronounced it the American way. So I got this army press card and then jumped in a helicopter and they dropped me in the jungle with the Marines. Nobody asked questions. It was incredibly easy.
Wow.
And as I didn't have money, I stayed with the army all the time. I didn't even want to go to the free hotel.
Did you have like rations and things like this?
Yeah, you would eat. And at the base was like a city. You had, you had a cafeteria, food, You would sleep with the soldiers, go on patrol with the soldiers, go on R&R with them. It was like free.
So they pretty much opened you with, they welcomed you, excuse me, with
Yeah.
open arms.
Completely. And you could take any pictures you wanted. Jump in a helicopter, go on the front line, stay on patrol. You know, helicopters come in when they had wounded.
Mm-hmm.
So you could go there and stay or come out with the next wounded if there was room.
Now, I know we've spoken before, and one of the stories you told me was that I was just thoroughly enthralled with was you went out with one of these like specialized troops. It wasn't a platoon really, but it was like a troop of like 4 or 5 guys.
Yeah, that was the most stupid move I ever did because I got friends with them. But these guys only fight at night,
Yeah.
so you can't take pictures. You only take risks.
So you didn't get any pictures at that time?
Nothing.
But these were the guys, I think
They call them LRPs, Long Range Reconnaissance Patrol.
and they came in after everybody else had left?
They
or
would sometimes you had a big operation with the regular army and Marines, you know, search and destroy. And you had like maybe 300-400 soldiers dropped by helicopters. 5 days search and destroy, moving all around. Then 80 helicopters would come in and take them out. Amongst those 300 soldiers, you had the LRPs, different by maybe 5 groups of 6 men that were amongst them. When the helicopters left, the North Vietnamese thought everybody had left. The LRPs would stay and hide. They would stay back and hide in bushes. And then at night they would move because they had targets to take care of.
like what?
Kill some political guy in a village or one of the orders
Or
I
a
would,
high positioned officer or something of this
if
nature?
possible, yeah. Or mine a special place or destroy a base. And they were incognito until the operation was done. Then everybody was trying to kill them. And they had to do about 10 miles in the jungle running to get a helicopter to exfil them. So I loved to do that with them, but it was stupid. As a journalist, if you can't take pictures with the, you can't flash in the night because you'll die.
It's like lighting a cigarette with a
Yeah.
lighter or something instead of a match.
Yeah, where you can light 2, it's the third one you can't.
That's right, yeah. I see.
No, but to be serious, it was not a good move. I didn't do hundreds of patrols with them, but they were my friends. So I wanted the experience of close combat. They had bows, some of them, compound bows, for the sentinels. We killed them without noise. These were tough guys.
Yeah, I think you had mentioned that one of them was a Native American. I'm not sure if he was Navajo or which.
Apache.
Was he Apache? Yeah.
Shirikawa.
Yeah. And this is.
He was half-breed.
Uh-huh.
There were 2 full-blooded Apaches, 1 half-breed, then a guy from the Bronx, a Vietnamese guide and translator. His legs were so skinny, we called him Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
It was like legs of a chicken.
Mm-mm.
And there was a black guy. We were about 8 or 6, I don't remember, depend. So they were good fighters. Sky, he had gray eyes, the half-breed, so they called him Sky Eyes. He had like an angel face, long black hair, red paint across the face. But he was probably one of the most dangerous guys I ever met. He was really a good killer, tough guy, I remember when you fire he had a sniper rifle sometimes. And he said, okay, I dropped 2. I said, what do you feel when you shoot guys? And he would act as he was thinking, looking at the sky. The recoil of my rifle.
The recoil of my rifle.
That's what I feel. I said, what do you think about when one of your guys is dead? Better him than me. That's the kind of guy, who eats barbed wire at the breakfast and shits napalm. But he was an interesting guy. We got pretty friends, and then he deserted. And it wasn't wasn't good in Paris. She's too wild.
Didn't you say that originally he was given the choice to like either
Yeah.
do time or go to Nam?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. He's not the only one who had that.
Yeah, but a lot of people were sort of like they
Like-
said they could either do a bid in prison or they could go off and do a tour in Nam.
Yeah,
And so
then
he-
they would be free men. They had to be, I think, 2 years in Vietnam instead of 1 year.
Okay, so they did like 2 tours. Yeah.
Yeah. And, well, they would spot the guys who had a potential.
For being a killing machine.
Well, they didn't know if he was a killing machine, but they knew he was fit and strong. So he had like 6 months training, really hard training, and became a good killer and a lerp. And I remember he told me they would train on, how do you call these huge pigs? A trout? No, the female of the pig.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, they're pink, huge.
I don't know
With
what
tits, like 12 tits.
Yeah, I don't recall.
It's huge pigs, They would hang them from the feet. So a pig like that screams like a
human.
man.
Yeah, exactly like a
and the
human,
skin
yeah.
is the same. And it's huge. And they would give them a small knife, not bigger than that. Kill it. Imagine, first of all, it's strong, a pig. So holding it, it's moving like that, hang by the feet. The energy you have you can feel of life under your arm when you're trying to hold him still and stabbing him,
Yeah.
and how much blood you're going to get in your face, and the screaming. And then, once you've done that 100 times, they give you a long knife to kill a small man. It's easy.
Yeah. They've conditioned you to be numb to
and
it.
that was all the things like that, After Sky had a knife like that long, and the Vietnamese was like half his size. Nothing compared to the huge pig. So it was hard training.
That sounds
They made him a hard man. We were once in this nightclub where I worked in Paris to make money to go back to Vietnam, called the Rock and Roll Circus. And because Sky was huge, we put him as a bouncer. And one guy started raising hell. Sky got up. I said to the guy, just calm down. But he had this nice face, guy. His blue eyes, long hair. So the guy just told him to fuck off. And Sky started breaking his neck. And we all jumped on him and said, sit, stop. And he was like, and Sky let him go. And the guy ran away and said, this guy's crazy. He nearly broke my neck. I would feel it cracking.
Yeah.
Well, we realized this guy didn't know how to fight. He knew how to kill.
Yeah.
He couldn't do a street fight. He knew how to turn the guy around and just break his neck, not lose time. So that was the problem.
Yeah, he couldn't be a bouncer.
Not a good bouncer. At the end, you have no more clients. So that was the story of Sky. So I made a book out of that. Of course, it's a novel because I changed a lot of things, and some patrols were boring, some patrols things happened. So I concentrated everything. And actually, they're trying to make a feature film now.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it just started a few months ago. They're looking for they're trying to find the actor to play that role.
That'd be great.
It's not going to be easy. A 21-year-old half-breed.
Yeah.
They're thinking of a Latin American rapper, because these guys are famous in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
They rap, so they know how to act in front of a camera.
Yeah.
And they look like Indians.
Well, they have some kind of indigenous blood, probably.
Yeah. So if you put them, colored
Contact lenses. or
contact
something,
lenses, could do it. Except they're small. Sky was huge, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The size in a film is not
It
important.
depends on the angle they're going to shoot you from.
Yeah. So voila, this is the story of. So the LERP, as you said, was not a good idea. It was dangerous, hard, no pictures. No.
You said that you kind of were, received and welcomed with open arms. Do you feel like, I guess, a lot of that's changed?
Oh, yeah.
In the field, like in the sense of, like now, you were, I guess, a war reporter was sort of part of war. He was welcome to come in. They wanted him there. You were considered one of the, I guess, troops or soldiers.
Yeah.
And do you feel like now it's sort of, they try to exclude you from what's going on?
Well, they realized how much damage on the American opinion a photography could make. The Vietnamese girl naked, burned, running in front of a camera. The General Loan shooting what looks like a civilian with his pistol. That didn't help for the PR. I mean, My Lai, the massacre of the 300 or 400 villages, babies and women by the American soldiers, it's the American army that called the press to show them the bodies. They were so sincere and on the legal side, and it's, I don't know which amendment, the right of information to the truth. You can't block the press. So now they've realized how important it is to have the public opinion on your side. They try to control the press much more. It's part of the strategy. Now it's to control the press. So they make a choice of like maybe 50 guys they trust, mostly Americans, embed them, and make a pool. So they can give the pictures to you, but they won't take you. And so the Americans are pretty cool with that. But like the Gulf War, they had chosen maybe 200 reporters who were embedded, and the others no.
Is this the first or the second Gulf War?
The first one.
Okay, so circa 90, 91.
Yeah, and I wasn't there, but and a group of French and British photographers who were not embedded decided to make a group that was called the FTP, Fuck the Pool. And so they made their own. They would follow the American patrols from far away with their own cars. But that's where you had the most killed.
Okay.
A lot of them by the Americans, actually, because when they see a car in the desert coming towards them, they'll fire.
Ask questions later, yeah.
Yeah. The Americans have a tendency of opening up, shooting very easily, a lot. It's a rich army. They have lots of bullets and they use them. And I was shot by the Americans.
In Panama?
Yeah, a bullet in the stomach.
Is that why you didn't go to the Gulf War? Because you're probably still recovering?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
No.
my uncle lost a good friend photographer during the Indochina War, who was a photographer, and he was his mentor. So at one moment, he saw in me like his friend. So each time he could put me aside of a war, he would hire me as a photographer for a feature film. So during the 3 months where I was well paid taking pictures of actors, I couldn't go. So, and he even made me play in his films. So he would really keep me out of arms.
He was trying to keep you out of trouble.
Yeah. So when there was the Gulf War, I was in Vietnam doing the feature film called Dien Bien Phu. 6 months in Vietnam. It was fantastic. But I could see the news and I could see the war approaching and the Americans getting ready in Kuwait, and I was like, no, merde, you know. And the war broke out and I missed it. I was so furious.
Well,
Like,
getting back to Panama, I mean, you were down there in 89 and then...
yeah, well, I was there many times, but in 89, that was when the Americans came in, invaded Panama.
And you were hit by friendly fire, no?
Voila. I remember that the newspaper I was working with, Newsweek, they made a little inside story saying their photographer was shot. And the title was Oops.
Oops, just
Oops. Oops.
that. And you were shot once or twice?
No, I was hit once in the stomach. Bullet came out the back, made
Okay.
a hole about this size.
Whoa.
It was a big, big hole. Because it hit how do you say, une côte.
A rib.
A rib, spinned, bounced off the spine, and left.
Okay, so it kind of ricocheted around in there.
Yeah, so it takes lots of meat with it. It's a small, fast bullet that can really, you know, I had a friend that was killed. He was shot in the shoulder, and he was dead. We found the bullet in his foot.
Okay.
It's like playing, you know.
Billiards or something.
Yeah. These are horrible bullets.
And they're designed to just sort of...
Yeah, they're light, so you can carry more.
Mm.
They're very fast, so if they hit something solid, they'll bounce all over.
Just to do as much internal damage as they can.
They're made for mostly to wound more than kill, because a wounded man takes much more toll on the army than the dead man. The dead man, you put him at a place and you go on fighting. The wounded, you have to carry him.
Mm.
Then you have to evacuate him. Then you have to treat him. Then you probably have to pay for his whole life because he's a cripple.
Mm.
So it's better to wound than kill. So that's all part of the thinking on that kind of bullet. But it's not. It has no stopping power. The old bullets are bigger. So if you're coming towards me and I shoot you, it'll stop you.
Mm.
The M16, you can be dead, you're still coming towards me because your nerves are still working. So if in a close combat, the guy will still kill you. He's clinically dead, but his movements will go on for maybe another 2 meters.
Mm.
But as war usually, we thought, was not going to be close fighting anymore, it was a better idea to have a smaller bullet that goes faster and makes small damage. So it's just horrible thinking of being efficient on the enemy.
And actually, I guess
So I
causing
got-
them to spend more money.
Yeah, and so I got hit. I got hit in the collar.
Collarbone?
No, the collar of my
Oh,
clothes.
okay.
I had like 3 holes. I had one in the sleeve, in the photo bag, one cut my belt. The guy opened the whole clip on me, you know. He killed the photographer who was next to me, who got the bullet around the nose and came out the top of the head. He was a Spanish photographer called Juancho Rodriguez. And the British photographer who was laid further down, got a bullet in the hip, came out the knee. So he was badly hurt also.
And is this the moment when you actually had to cinch yourself up? Is this when you actually had to sort yourself out with some kind of...
I stayed 4 hours bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't come to me. There was too much shooting. Because the rebels, when they saw the Americans were shooting at the Americans, came up and started shooting in the middle, so it was like a nightmare.
Mm.
And it lasted quite a while. And then this American soldier came crawling. There were 2 American soldiers. And it was a SP specialist, Timothy Deal, he had his name here. And he put a finger in my eye. And I went, ouch. And he said, okay, you're alive. You were dozing away. I said, give me some morphine, because a bullet in the stomach hurts a lot.
Yeah.
And he said, you have to take the pain, because you've lost a lot of blood. And if I give you morphine,
gonna
your
thin
heart's
your
going to
blood.
slow down. It's
Oh,
going to
yeah.
kill you. Take the pain. You know, and he hit my stomach, so the pain would. And then he said, okay, if I give you morphine, you're going to die. And I said, well, I'm fucked. I mean, I've lost so much blood. And I was like talking like this, you know, and I was cold. It was really hot. I had lost too much blood. I was sort of dozing off from time to time. And he said, I never lost a wounded, so I'm not going to start now. You're going to get up and you're going to run with me under fire. We're going to have to run. I can't carry you. I said, I can't run. He said, yes, you can. No bones broken. You can run. You're going to hurt, but you can run. And the other guy, who's the protection, laughed when he said, I never lost a wounded. And he said, come on, let's stop talking. Let's just get out of this shit, you know. And so they were sort of holding me up, but we were running. It was the worst moment. It was about 800 meters. I was shooting all over. And when I was secured at the hotel on the ground with other wounded, I saw the guy who laughed. I said, why do you laugh when he said he never lost a wounded? Like I said, because you're his first. I said, haha, very funny. Timothy Deal was 22 years old. And they evacuated me to the American base in Gorka, which is in Panama. It's like Guantanamo, they have a base there. And they operated me, cut parts threw them out, stitched up, clean. And the hole, as the guy said, is going to make itself. We can't close because it'll infect.
Mm.
And the problem is, I woke up. You have like a tent over your body, and you have a pipe here, a pipe at the dick, a pipe here. You have got pipes everywhere. You're shitting through the nose.
Nice.
It's horrible. And you're dressed like a girl. You have this stupid thing that opens up behind.
A gown, yeah, it's a gown, yeah.
And it's open in the back. Very nice. And Dr. Lopez, Colonel Lopez, came to see me in the morning. And I was like half sleepy. And I had this tent, and I was sort of bizarre pain from the toes to the head. Because of the morphine, you don't know where it hurts. You know it's somewhere, but it's not really pain anymore, but something's wrong. I said, what did you do to me? And he said, it's okay, everything's under control. I cut your balls. And I went, excuse moi? What did you say? Because he looked pretty happy saying that, you know? So I had quite a moment of solitude. And he saw my face, said, sorry, bowels.
Yeah.
Bowels. I said, okay. He said, let me rephrase. And I said, yeah, that's very funny. And then when you're wounded in the bowels, they stick because they're not used. They're in shock. Now, you can die of infection or because the transit doesn't come back. It goes up instead of going down through the nose.
Yeah.
So they give you liquid food. And every day you had this beautiful nurse, red hair. Her skirt, she could put like 4 dresses in this cup. So her dress was so small. And she would come every day with this beautiful mouth, said, did you fart? Because that's the first sign things are getting better. The air goes the right way. So like for 4 days, did you fart? And I said, no, leave me alone. You know. And then one day she didn't have to ask the question. The whole room was stinking. And she said, good. I remember because when they put me in this medicalized jet, she went with me to the jet carrying the thing. We got sort of close. And I said, can I give you my 06? And she said, no, I think we had a bad start. Like, did you fart every day and then you finally fart? I said, yeah, that's right. I don't think it's going to work. No, it's not a good idea. But it's, you know, it's horrible to be in that position. So I kept in contact with Lopez for a while, and we would write letters, and every time at the end he would write in capital letters, bowels, you know. So it was a hard experience because it hurt a lot. I couldn't work for like 9 months. I had to redo everything. And I thought I was going to die. Because a bullet...
When you were in the field, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, a bullet in the stomach, usually you're fucked.
Yeah.
Because you have big arteries there, and there's no way you can make a tourniquet. So I wasn't scared at the beginning, because, I mean, if you're going to die, you're going to die, you know. But it's when I realized, because I was looking at my watch, it'd been 20 minutes I was lying on the ground, and I was still alive. That meant I didn't have a main artery cut.
Yeah.
I was bleeding a lot, but not... So then time counts. And maybe I'm going to miss my luck. Then you get scared when you think you could make it. But when I thought I was going to die, I was trying to find a beautiful phrase, like in the movies, you know? Nothing. Mais rien du tout. Nothing.
You couldn't sign off with a great little...
No, I just saw this moineau. I don't know how you call a moineau in English. This small bird, you know, brown in Paris. Sparrow.
Is it a sparrow? Yes.
Yeah, sparrow. He was singing on a branch in my eye angle. I started hating him. Really strong hate. Probably him kept me alive. I was like, va se faire enculer. You know, he was like...
Singing up a storm.
Yeah, and I was like dying. And this guy, I knew if I died, he would still be singing, this son of a bitch. And I suddenly got obsessed by this bird. I imagine him taking feather after feather off his body, breaking his head. I don't know. I'm a bad person, probably. You know.
Well, it kept you alive, though. Probably the idea of that.
Yeah, saying, "Why are you singing? I'm dying." You know. And he was like singing.
Would you say that's the most afraid you've ever been in any of the combat zones you've been in?
Well, it's the most painful, at least.
Yeah.
Afraid I don't. Yeah, of course I was scared of missing the rendezvous with the luck.
Mm.
But then you're in such a state of adrenaline. You can't. It's not afraid like you would think of it. It's angoisse, maybe.
Anxieties or something.
Yeah, strong anxiety. It's like when you think you're going to have an accident with your bike.
Okay. Yeah.
Just the moment where you think you're losing, you have like 5 seconds, something, and then you make it. So it's not.
It's like a close call.
Yeah, it's not really afraid. Because afraid you lose your. I've seen people get really afraid. And
They lose their ability to reason, or
they lose everything.
Yeah.
So I've never felt that.
No.
I've felt, let's say, anguish and a little bit of fear when you're going to an operation with guys, you know it's going to be hard and it's going to be very dangerous until you're in the action. Once you're in the action, it's over.
Because then all your adrenaline comes back, and
Yeah, and you have things to do. You have your camera. You have the light, the frame.
you don't think anymore.
You're working.
Yeah.
You're working. You have something to do. And when you think of danger, it's when you're in the airplane going to a place, when you're still a peace man, a man from peace, I would say. So you're having a whiskey, looking at the hostess, thinking, am I going to make it? Am I going to die on this story?
So it's more the anticipation that's scary than it is actually arriving and being there. Once you're there, it's like
Once you're there, you have too many things to do.
yeah.
It's, getting there could make you, that's where you have to be careful to not let the fear come, because fear can be contagious. It's a dangerous thing. It can have you killed, have you hesitate, in driving your car, going to the front line, like in Ukraine. The last 100 kilometers to the front line, you're under fire on the road. There's only you and military. And the rockets come in from helicopters, and there you're driving fast, and you're saying shit, trying to make it alive to the front line, and so that's when you can start thinking of bad,
Dark thoughts.
yeah.
Over the years, have you just sort of trained yourself to go into combat mode and, I guess, block out that fear? Or just be able to, you've trained yourself to deal with it?
I didn't train; it just happens. I didn't, do something.
So it became automatic for you?
It's automatic, yeah. I know the feeling now. I can recognize when the anguish could become fear and block it.
Mm-hmm.
You know yourself pretty well when you're on war. You know your limits physically. You know your limits on everything, and you can feel, you can see, you can smell, you can hear much better than anywhere else, because everything is
heightened.
Yeah.
You're like spidey senses, kind of?
You're like, you can feel things, this is not a good place. Let's change place. Boom, the tank blows up. Like you saw the picture of my son in Mosul. We were behind the head tank. There was a bulldozer under the head tank, and we turned it to this long, wide road. We were before in small roads, streets, which is not much space between the tank and the houses. We turned into this much wider road. I said to my son, let's leave 3 Humvees pass, and we'll go behind the 3rd Humvee. And he said, why? I said, because the tank will be a target if there is RPG or kamikaze car or kamikaze on foot. And so if we're behind the tank, we're dead. And this road is wide enough for a guy to take momentum to hit the tank. And I had barely said that, boom, that kamikaze car hit the tank.
Okay.
And that's how I got the picture of my son in the picture
Yeah.
because he was in front of me at that time. I was not. And he like starts to run away on my picture. And I told him, you're not a good reporter. You're turning your back to the story. And plus that your fingers up instead of being down. But he was brave because when you start fleeing like he did, because the shrapnels are coming, all the shit coming from the bomb, pieces of the car, pieces of the Humvee, pieces of the tank, rocks, wood, glass, everything's coming your way real fast. And the soldiers were running away, except a few who didn't have time, so when they went hiding against the Humvee, he turned around and started taking pictures, which is very not easy. When you start running, to stop and turn around and face danger, then he screamed and his cameras were cut in two by shrapnel. And he was...
That's a reflex you have to sort of develop, huh?
To what?
Run away and keep taking pictures.
No, he didn't run away taking pictures. He ran away without taking pictures, and he stopped seeing I was taking a picture and came back.
Okay. I thought that he was trying to do the thing where you run away.
That's not brave.
No.
Brave is to stop.
But it would be efficient. I mean, you could try to get pictures.
You get a shitty picture. No, he turned around and actually got two good pictures. They're not as good as mine, not because I'm a better photographer, because everybody had already hidden. So there's no soldiers in his pictures. They just took the Humvee and the explosion. I have the soldiers running. But, he showed me he had momentum to stop and get back.
Or had the wherewithal to make it happen, yeah.
And plus, we didn't have a helmet, we didn't have a bulletproof jacket, we were in T-shirts.
Because you didn't think there was any sort of
no, we didn't want
clear
to.
and present danger at that
No, it was
that
really
moment.
dangerous. No, it was very dangerous.
Oh, it was?
But I just decided we were better off being fast than slow. If you have a bulletproof jacket, it's good when you're a sentinel or when you're driving or when you're riding in a Jeep and then you have to jump out 10 meters. But if you're running behind a tank all day by 40 degrees, it's 7 kilos plus the helmet, 2.5 kilos.
An extra 10 kilos, yeah.
And a guy, if he wants to kill you, he'll not shoot you in the bulletproof jacket, he'll shoot you everywhere, in the legs, in the head, in the arms, and you're dead. So I remember there was this Turkish cameraman. He had a big helmet, big Bluetooth jacket the day before. And he saw my son and me in T-shirt and said, "You're crazy. You shouldn't be like that." And even the soldiers said that. I said, Turkish, "Look, maybe you're going to be hit in the ass."
Yeah.
And he went, "Haha, very funny." 2 days after, he arrived on a stretcher with a hole like this in the ass. I believe me. And he was still smoking.
No.
I didn't remind him my joke.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't in the mood.
I'm sure he wasn't.
No. He looked at me with his eye like, "Don't even think about it." I was like, "Wow, take care.
That goes
Have a
well
nice
for
day."
you.
So, but you see, in Panama, if I had a bulletproof jacket, I wouldn't have had the bullet in the stomach. Because I was in T-shirt. Actually, I was pretty pissed because I had lost all my stuff in the fighting the night before. So I'd bought on the street market a T-shirt with a big Mickey Mouse on it. Now, to die with that...
You were out...
I was wearing this fucking Mickey Mouse.
In the fields in Panama with Mickey Mouse.
Yeah. Imagine I would have died and how stupid I would have looked, my body would have looked.
Well, I can't imagine how stupid you look just being in the war with the Mickey Mouse shirt.
Yeah, but
dying in it, though, that would have been... Yeah, that would have been pretty tragic.
No, that would have been really ridiculous,
You talked about psychologically, I guess, transitioning to go into battle, and what, I guess, feelings come over you and how to react to those. I used to work with, I guess we call them in English, Doctors Without Borders. I used to teach them English. And I had some, people tell me some great stories. And one of the women there said that when she'd come back, that was like one of the most difficult things. I said, "Well, I don't understand." She said, "Well, I'll come back and I'm only allowed to be out in the field for like 11 months because we work 6 days a week. And when I come back, I go back home and I actually have a roommate and I have to deal with their problems, but their problems aren't problems." I go, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Well, I have this roommate that says to me, 'I'm really upset The washing machine's not working. I had to go down to the laundromat. And she looks at me and she just goes, I literally just have to like bite my tongue. And sometimes I can. I'm just like, you need to get a grip. Like, that's not a problem. So how do you transition back into, like, when you come back to Paris, to France, or...
Well, you have to, like you say in French, relativiser. You know, you can't... I mean, when you come out the airplane with still an arrow in your cowboy hat, I mean, if your girlfriend says, I had a horrible week, I had a ticket, you have to be careful of your answer, because you're not going to have sex if you say je m'en fous.
Yeah.
You know, you have to go, oh merde, you know, c'est terrible. So you have to adjust. I mean, it's not because people have not been to war that their life is not complicated.
Yeah, of course not. It's all relative, like you said.
Yeah, so you have to adjust. When you're younger, it's more difficult. I used to fight a lot. You know, I was a bachelor, and I would go to clubs, and then you had this guy with a shirt with flowers, smiling, and I'd punch him. Didn't even talk. Just walked to him and punched him. He was dancing with 3 girls, and he would go like, "Mais il est con," you know, he's crazy. And I said, "Why are you laughing? People are dying in Vietnam."
Yeah.
He said, yeah. He didn't know what to answer, and I punched him again. But in the end, I had problems with the police.
After a while, I'm sure you did.
And the law, you know.
Yeah.
So at one moment, the judge said, well, next time you've been condemned to 4 months with how do you say, you don't go to prison, but if you have to be careful.
You're on probation.
Voilà, probation.
Yeah.
At the end, the guy said, if you punch one more guy, you're going to spend 3 years in jail. That's enough. Enough is enough. So I just went back to Vietnam, where I felt more comfortable. Because then you don't punch anybody, you don't have guns, you know.
Yeah.
And there was this American guy called Eric Derschmidt. He wrote a book called Don't Shoot on the American. He was a fantastic American cameraman living in Paris. He's probably still alive, I suppose. And he got a call from his family on the front line in Iraq during the Iraq-Iran war.
Mm-hmm.
And he got really scared because his wife trying to reach him on the front line, something's wrong. Takes him a while to get back to Baghdad, find a phone who's working. It's war. They called it the city wars. There was Baghdad firing on Tehran,
right.
You know, rockets, 1 million dead. It was a huge war. And he has a 3-year-old or 4-year-old daughter then. I don't remember the details, but he calls, he gets his wife on the phone. At least his wife is not dead. And how's my girl? She wants to talk to you. Why did you call me? The redfish died.
The goldfish died?
Yeah.
It was
So, I mean, he just left the front line, you know, and this guy is tough, you know. So he called CBS, I think he was working for CBS, and said, I have to go home. And the boss said, why? You lost a leg? And this guy never wants to leave the front line.
Yeah.
And he said, well, the goldfish died. The guy said, okay, go home. So he came to Paris, and there used to be animal shops along the Seine.
Yes, I remember that, yeah.
On the way from the airport, he stopped there, bought another fish, and got in the room with his daughter and talked about life and death. Because for his daughter, it was a Greek tragedy.
Yeah.
So that's what I call adjusting. He was an example for me for that.
That's amazing. Well, that's good parenting, too, I suppose, when his daughter
Well,
needed him most.
especially his boss, who probably had kids too.
Be sure to tune back in to the Lutetia Lounge next week to hear and or see the second part of our interview with Patrick Chauvel. More war stories and life lessons to come. Until then, bon vent, mes camarades.